Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast, your highest source of sacred truths and universal wisdom. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Rachel Fiori, mystic, spiritual teacher, psychic healer, and founder of Masters of Self University. Join our journey of soul transformation as we deep dive into this latest episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Masters of Self University podcast. I'm your host, Ellie Lee.
And I'm your host, Morley.
And today we are joined by newly certified mystical life coach, Emily Hunt, everybody.
Welcome, Emily.
Hello. Hi, guys. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Good.
It's a windy day here.
Yeah. Okay, you're in Oregon, right?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. And we've hit fall, winter, all of the crazy weather that we get here. So we've got wind, rain, snow, back to rain. It's fun.
Damn, sounds cozy. You know, San Diego, we only have the sun. That's the only thing we have every day. And welcome to the MSU family. You know, for those of you who guys are listening and don't know Emily Hunt, it's because she is a new added member to Master of Self University as a mystical life coach. So it's been, quite the ride watching your journey over the last 7, 8, 9 months. And here you are. So really officially welcome.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. It's beautiful to be a part of this community. This community has been absolutely amazing and completely integral in healing and moving through everything.
Yeah.
So you guys have been the best support system.
Yeah. People at home, we really are a squad, and we really pull up and help each other and coach each other. And it's really this beautiful family unit where there is no codependency. There's what programs are you running and how can we support you through them?
Yeah, that's when you put it that way, it's like, oh yeah, that's something that I've never experienced before until you guys with this group. Yes, a community of people without codependency. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love your topic today. I think it's something that a lot of people can relate to. So let's talk divorce, shall we?
Yes, here we go. Divorce was my big catalyst for change. It was my wake-up call. And it gave me the opportunity to really dig into why that was happening. I think my first question in going through divorce and making the choice to leave a marriage and a 12-year relationship was, my parents are happy. My parents aren't divorced. Why did this happen? I don't have any history of this in my family. And it really put me in the position where I could dig in to, everything leading up to even the inception of that relationship.
And where are you at now with all of this?
I have to say now, so moving through it was very, very difficult without the skill set that, I've developed here. Moving through it, I had a sense of everything that I was learning. Looking back now, I'm like, oh, I was picking up on all of those lessons without knowing it. And now it puts me in a position, having moved through it, having done this work, where I can witness myself and make choices from a more grounded space. I co-parent with my ex-husband, and the first few years of that, going through separation, divorce, and the first few years of trying to co-parent was very, very difficult. It brought forward every last one of my control programs in trying to manage the way that he was dealing with the kids and raising kids, and took me back throughout the whole relationship and witnessed that that's something that I had been running throughout the entire relationship. So it's given me this beautiful opportunity to see where that comes up, see where it comes from, and then make the choice to not move from that space. And in the biggest part of that, in recognizing that in myself, his energy towards me was able to shift. And so the co-parenting has gotten much more regulated than it started out when I was trying to control everything. Whatever he brought to the table is his stuff to own. I won't go into that, but obviously that has an effect on me too. But just my ability to witness my own programs running and make the choice to not act from there has shifted his energy as well. And today I would say we have a very good co-parenting relationship where we, manage to make choices together, and there's very little control left after this process.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were together 12 years.
Yes.
And at which point did you start to get this wake-up call that you mentioned?
It was really after our second daughter was born. It was, in looking back, it was a recognition of, oh my gosh, we've done all the things. We dated, we got engaged, we had a big wedding, we got married, we had a kid, we had 2 kids. There aren't any more kids coming. What am I doing? So it made me look back and see that the way I was coming from in that relationship was from a space of a lot of wanting and projection into the future. And it was really filling something in me that I hadn't been able to give myself. And so that my second daughter being born, and she was a wild child of an infant, and that brought up a lot of programs for me as well, a lot of triggers in her being there, and a lot of triggers for him as well. And then it was like, okay, this is the gritty, real, dirty stuff, and there's nothing else coming. There's no more big events to look forward to or to hang this marriage on. And for me, it was, okay, this is it. This is it. There hasn't been connection here because I haven't been connected to myself, and the choices that I've made here haven't come from, the depths of my being, my heart, my soul. And now I need to get that back.
Yeah. And I feel like this is many people, right? This is what we're told to do, right? We're so disconnected from ourselves. We don't know how to feel love within ourselves. And so we do all the steps that they tell us to do, right? You find someone, you go, oh, I can build a life with you. Then you decide that you're going to build a life. Then you get engaged, you get married, you have the kid, then you have another kid, you live in the house and all that. And then you're like, wait, what just happened? What just happened? Yeah. And so, I'd love to hear a little bit about, because to even participate in a divorce, right? Even to say, like, I'm done with this, I'm walking away, takes a certain amount of power, right? Someone who's not even connected to it a little bit would stay in that forever and ever and ever. And then you're on your deathbed and you're like, man, I stayed with mofo for the last 50 years, right? And so I'd talk a little bit about how you found your power in saying, like, actually, I'm done with this and I'm going to walk away from me.
So it really started, I get, when I look back, I feel all of the times that I ignored that higher self saying, girlfriend, and it got to a point where there was so much fear in leaving. I had every excuse in the book. I have 2 kids. I'm going to stay together for the kids. I think that one's really, really common. I'm going to stay together for the kids. There was a point in time where my older daughter was watching us in the kitchen, and we like hugged or embraced or something. And she was like, oh my goodness, yay, mom and dad, oh my gosh. It's like, oh my gosh, she's shocked that we're embracing because we don't have this physical connection. Like, this is not good. And you gradually find that all of these little things add up. This overwhelming sense that I let run in the background, that I chose to ignore, that I didn't pay attention to, was there all the time. And it hurts. It becomes physically painful to ignore that. I had a lot of anxiety, a lot of like I would get this line that would run from my throat all the way down into my stomach, and it would feel so constricted. So the anxiety, watching my kids, be excited that we were actually, engaging with each other, and going through this process where it was, am I okay with losing everything? Because I will lose everything. And how okay can I get with that? How still can I be with that? And once I was at that point where it was like, okay, I can start over. I'm willing to lose everything. It took me months. I remember asking for it initially and then getting too scared and backing down. And then a few months later, it was just a point of no return. It was, I want a separation, and then it was, I want the divorce. And it was really just energetically separating myself without knowing it. Obviously, like I said, I didn't have this work at that point in time, but what I was effectively doing was energetically separating myself from my physical attachments to all of these physical things. I feel like there was a bit of disassociation from the impact on my daughters and from my attachment to being their mom. I literally had to, without this skill set here, I had to like almost disconnect from my relationship with them too. And that's something that I'm now working on going back to heal. But it was that really just, am I okay with losing everything? Am I okay with, not seeing my kids for days at a time? Am I okay with losing my house?
Well, you're going into it now, so this is great. Where you're at in that moment of your life, like, what is everything to you? You mentioned losing the house, not seeing your kids. Like, go deeper and like, what's in there? What was your everything at that moment?
Oh gosh, my everything at that moment in time was so many what I would call like surface level attachments. Like what I'd built my identity to be was like, we custom built a house on 10 acres. It's a farmhouse. I picked out everything to go in here. This is my everything. It was, we own a boat. We go out to the lake every weekend. All of our friends go out to the lake. We'll be buying lake property eventually. It was so on the surface, and it was all covering up that emptiness in me, like searching for an identity. And this was it. He came with a built-in group of friends, this sense of community that I'd never had before. And all of his friends, he grew up out here where we're living, and it's a small town. And so the built-in group of friends was huge to me. I never had that. So there was a lot of attachment there where it was like, oh my gosh, what do I do without friends? I have this group of people that I've been with for a really, really long time. I will lose them. And what does that mean for me? And my identity was very wrapped up in it. And that, it was a really good ego death, like a small one, because, the programs were still running even after I left. Right. So it ended up attaching to different things that I've now worked through. But that initial one was pretty big. It was, oh my gosh, I am free falling. It was,
sounds like a form of like spiritual initiation in some level, like a test that you had to go through of like being presented with this old life, this old identity, this identity construct which you had, and then your soul's coming in and being like, hey, you're supposed to be doing something else with your life. And you're like, no, I want this. This is comfortable. This is what I know. And the ego stays very attached to that until, the soul's scream is loud enough that you go, okay, I'm listening.
But I think the beautiful part about an initiation like that, right? Or what clearly seems like a cycle of wisdom that you had to move through is you get pushed so far that there is no point of return, right? You are at a point where you're like, well, I can't just keep doing this, and I can't keep staying here, and I can't play the wife in this role anymore. Like, it was the point of no return, which is like, people think like that's a horrible place to be. And it's like, no, there's so much freedom in that, because there is only one choice. And the choice is that you have to choose you and go a path that is going to have the old world completely fall.
Yes. Yes, completely. And, that was scratching the surface for me. What, it was this little initiation that you are like, this is the biggest deal ever. And what I've come to notice now in this journey is that really was just a small, tiny thing, even though you think of divorce being this giant bomb of a blow up. Physically, it is. You lose everything. You lose everything. But the real work starts after that, right? So everything that the awareness that was able to give me, that push, it was amazing. It was what I needed. And now you get to the point where you're like, oh God, now I have to institute all of this. Now I get to integrate. Now I get to really, so, looking back on that, it was hard. It's not as, that was physically tearing everything apart. Now I feel like it is, tearing everything apart that's inside, right? Pulling everything up that's inside. So it's interesting to see those two different energies of like the physically tearing down. And now I feel like we're in this process of internally tearing it down or pulling it up. So it was, truly a catalyst for that.
Your external world is starting to crumble.
Yes.
And then now it's like, okay, now I've got to take care of all the inner world, all the internal stuff. So moving through this kind of initiation, when did you start to get the nudge that I've got to start looking within myself and go on this inner journey?
Oh, it was really, I remember making an appointment to start seeing a counselor like a week before I asked for my divorce. And I knew then there was that push. And then I found myself in another relationship, and witnessing myself in the other relationship showing up in the same ways that I had been in my marriage was like, oh, okay, it isn't just tearing all this physical stuff down again and here you get yourself back. No. There's a lot more here. Like, that question of my parents are together. Why am I getting divorced? And then you start to dig in and you're like, ooh, well, maybe my parents chose not to make the decision that I'm making right now. And, the physicalities start to be that veil, right? Where you're like, okay, all of this looks like this, but what's really underneath? And so, especially getting into another relationship and watching myself show up the same way in that relationship was like, oh, fuck, I've got to change something. I've really got to dig into why this is all happening. And I started, listening to more coaching, different modalities on podcasts, following different accounts on Instagram that, offered these different healing modalities. Wanted to look into shadow work when shadow work started, being really pushed to the forefront of the spiritual community. It was like, there's something here. I know that there is shit way back in childhood. I can sense that. I started paying attention to like, oh my gosh, I don't have a whole lot of memory from childhood. There has to be a reason. This can't just be like, oh, this is who you are. No. There's a reason for why you're acting this way. And, that was something I was always told growing up was like, no, you're just difficult. You're just difficult. You just fight everything. And the more you get into it, you realize, no, that is a program that was developed to handle experience. So what were those experiences? And digging into that was very eye-opening to me. When I left my marriage, I was under the impression that I came from this beautifully, perfect family, and I was the one that was messed up. So it really gave me that opportunity to look back and feel into the inceptions of these energies of, fighting or control programming or dependency. So yes, I feel like the shadow work really hit me hard in, trying to understand. And that's kind of where I started. I ended up hearing Rachel on the Mark Groves podcast, and that's what brought me to Rachel. It was like, this is it. Out of everything I've listened to, this is it.
That soul's calling.
Yeah.
when you just know inside, oh yeah, this is it. This hits something deep. I know Ellie came in from Mark Groves too, right?
Yeah. And I was like, whatever she's saying, I need it. This is it. And it's like, in order for someone to listen and hear what Rachel's teachings are, you would have had to go through so many other things to know that what she's speaking of, the vibration of that, is truth. And I had been years and years and years of listening to so many different people. And then when she came along, I was like, that's it. I don't fully understand it all, but that's it. And then thus begins what I like to call like the real true shadow work chapter of your life, because this is the real work. And this is, we're not just saying this because we're coaches under this, like, no, this is the real thing. And it requires you to go deep, deep, deep and get to the root. And so, you know, the fact that you're sharing all of this, it's like, you know, I think that there's nothing like a romantic relationship to really excavate. I just thought of like this is like archaeology work, you know, like to really get in there and like shovel from, you know, where this was first caused. And I know that I haven't spoke about this a lot, but when me and Danny started first talking with each other, there was this period where he was like, I just need space and I just need to be on my own. And my entire world crumbled, right? And you know, my programs wanted to say that, oh, it's because he's leaving me. And it was like, no, sis, like this is much, much deeper. Like, and because it felt like almost I was being ripped away from something or somebody. And so this work saved me in so many ways and helped me find my power and like really helped me to see the codependent and the attachment and the needing and the low self-worth and like all of these things. And so, as brutal, I'm sure the divorce was for you, like, holy crap, it was the one to make you really awaken to like coming home to yourself.
Yes. Yeah, most definitely. And, you know, it was getting into another relationship really quickly after my divorce and noticing, like I said, that, you know, showing up in the same way. I was like, ooh, this isn't just, you know, this wasn't just this marriage. This is how I show up in relationship. And that was a really big deal to me.
And that was mainly the control. Is that what you're speaking of?
Yes, it was on the surface, it was control, but where does the control come from? It's that fear of, you know, for me, it's not, I don't really feel the abandonment so much as, you know, there's codependency in there. And so, yes, the control came in over that fear of losing, or that, you know, desperation in need to be with somebody else. So,
I think pretty much the whole planet can relate to that one, right? Because we've grown up not learning to be, you know, independent, powerful beings, like still working through a lot of codependency stuff that, you know, got birthed in childhood. You know, I'm still talking with certain family members and they want to keep me still as a little kid. And it's like, it's still, and I'm 31 and it's like, wow, there's still codependency going on now. So of course, it takes a long time to heal. It's not like something you just get in one clean little hit. It's like, wow, it's deep in there.
Oh yes. Codependency. I feel like that's the one that takes, it's like almost going in and like massaging scar tissue over and over and over again.
Yeah. And I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but like for me too, is like having a partner or having a man in my life meant like I'm worthy, I'm good enough, I'm loved, I'm all of these things. So there's so many wounds that are attached to. I was like you too. It was like I would do this fake like I love being single. It's like no, you don't. You just want someone to cling on to attach to, so you don't feel lonely, so you don't feel all these things. And that was a big wake up call too of like, man, and this is what we're all conditioned to think, right? Like think about all the movies we watch, the TV shows, every song is about you complete me, I need you, like without you I don't know love. And it's like humanity is hilarious in that way, like yes. I was telling Danny yesterday, like other dimensional beings are looking down at us. They're like, damn, humans, you guys really got it twisted. Like you really like look at another being and like want them to feel you and love you. And so, leaving certain relationship is so difficult, but like there's so much power. Like people don't know how much power is awaiting you when you leave something that no longer serves you, or you see it as, man, this person has really drained me and brought me down. And now how can I grow and rise from this situation? It's like the most powerful catalyst, I think, for any person's growth if they choose it. Man, if you choose it, it's so badass. It's so badass because, I see family members who don't choose it, right? And I see them just staying trapped and staying stuck. And it's like, you are disservicing you and your soul's growth. It's like, if you only choose the other path, what could happen? And it's like the fear of the unknown gets people and it just keeps people trapped. And it's like, man, if you walk into the unknown, you don't even know what's awaiting you.
Yes. And that choice, right? It's that choice to do what's really scary because it's uncomfortable. If you have never sat with yourself, if you have never been still enough to allow that stuff to come up, ooh, it's hard. It's scary. And even when you think you're doing it, what I would consider to be like, I don't know, toxic independence, where you're like, I can do it on my own. It's like, okay, but are we using those same physical things that we were attaching to in the relationship?
Yes.
And just translating them into independence and, using the same physical surface level stuff to attach to and calling it independence? Or are we truly able to like sit in the darkness of ourselves and let what's going to come up?
Yeah. And I found in our relationship, mine with Ellie, that toxic independence comes out as well, where like it's the pendulum swinging right from one side to the other. So you're like super attached and then you realize you're showing up really codependent. And then I'll go on stints where I'll be like, oh, I've got to go get my independence and my space. So I'm like, I'm gonna go spend a few nights away, and then I'll do that, and I'll spend maybe like a few hours away and be like, what am I doing? I'm acting like a little kid, like you're not invited to my birthday party. Or whatever, like I need to be on my own right now. I'm like storming off and like I need to be independent. And it's like clearly the energy that's coming from is like, and I've stopped doing that as much anymore. Although it did show up within the last week where we were going through something, and I could hear my mind saying, "You just need to go away for the night, and like you need to be on your own." And it's like, okay, I can be on my own for sure, but like, do I need to make it into this big deal and this like I must be defiant and I must be on my own to prove that I am not codependent and attached? Or do I need to just take some space and work through what's coming up and recognize that there is some codependence and attachment there, and I'm working on healing it, but I don't need to like defiantly run away on my own and become hyper independent and completely close everything off. Because at the end of the day, that's just another coping strategy. That's just another way for us to deal with what's coming up. That if I can just separate myself and become independent and not deal with anything that Ellie's bringing up in me, well, then I'm good. Oh, yeah. There's powerlessness. There's weakness. Like the powerful thing to do is, go away, sort yourself out, and return to it as soon as you found your center and you've healed what's in there. Now come back to it, whether that be 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, or take a day off, whatever. Now come back to it and work through what's coming up between you and your partner. And finding that balance is is tricky, especially if we're listening to our programs that want to be that hyper independent person.
Yeah, because what's the energy behind needing to spend the time alone, right? Is that truly coming from a space of like, I need to, drop into my heart. I need to spend some time with myself so that I can better understand what's going on here, so I can connect to myself? Or is it, that toxic independence? What energy is it coming from? What's the why?
Beautiful. And, there are many things in this world which are black and white. Right. But when we're really talking about mastering ourselves, most of it is nuanced. And we do have to drop into our heart and actually find, okay, what do I need to do in this situation? Do I need to maybe take a day away? Do I need to actually leave this person? As you so beautifully brought up, like, yeah, I had to do this separation, and it wasn't the right thing for me. And it ended up being the catalyst for all of my big changes in life, which is amazing. But it's never black and white. It's never like, okay, you encounter this problem, that's what you have to do. It's always, as you said, like, what is the energy I'm coming from? Am I coming from the energy of powerlessness, or am I connected to my heart and I'm receiving the guidance from my soul that, yep, this is the right thing to do, and I need to leave this person right now?
And also learning to take responsibility over yourself, right? Because most people, when they leave someone, they'll just project and blame. Well, he was this and she was this and they did all of these things, and I just don't want that anymore. And it's like, you've missed the entire point. You've missed it. And granted, there is truth to that, right? He is a dick. She is this. She is all this stuff. But how did you show up, and what did you contribute, and what's your stuff, right? And if you miss that beautiful cycle of wisdom that just was served to you, and you miss it, well, strap in, sis, because the next one will bring exactly the same thing that you've been missing out into the forefront. And then what are you going to do about it now? So everything is just about taking responsibility of yourself and seeing, like, where am I being asked to grow right now? What am I being asked to learn? And who am I meant to become because of this divorce? Is what we should all be asking ourselves as we move through really big changes and catalysts and things that are really uncomfortable.
So, Emily,
and then what do you do with it afterwards?
Sorry, keep going. We had a little lag there.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like, what do you do with it afterwards? Like, how do you choose to look at that, right? Are you going to look at it as it was this big mistake and, I messed it all up? And, I've definitely gone through times where I'm like, I got married in my 20s. I missed my opportunity for, that one person that you have a family with. And that has snuck in, not so much anymore, but it used to, so much so that I've even projected that need onto, the relationship that I got into after my divorce. That being said, what has come through for me really strong with that is like, did I pick the wrong person, right? Society would tell me I picked the wrong person. And because of that, here I am. I'm a single mom. I have 2 girls. Marriage, family will never look the same as what, you want growing up, or whatever, what society tells you should have. Did I pick the wrong person? Absolutely. I did not ever pick the wrong person. I 100% have always picked the right person, because that was what, my soul was meant to choose in order to elevate, in order to have those cycles of wisdom to bring me right here, right now. So that has come through really strong for me, is no, I've never picked. He was never the wrong person. He was actually exactly the right person. He was the right person to have kids with. He was the right person to go through all of this with.
Yeah. And it's beautiful, because what I can feel in that is you can look at that, right? And you're choosing gratitude for what that experience brought up for you and what you've gone into as a result of it, right? But most people wouldn't see the gratitude in that. They'll choose victim or blame or whatever it may be. And so there's so much power in seeing something that caused so much pain as such a beautiful gift in your life. Like, that is an awakened being.
Yeah, and that can only happen once you've healed the reasons of why you're feeling like the victim, right? So if someone is listening to this and like, oh man, I'm choosing that. I'm choosing the victim. Well, that's because there's still stuff there that needs to be loved. There's stuff there that needs to be healed. If you are making that choice and you're not able to, be grateful and see the cycle of wisdom and see what the gifts that it's brought, that's okay. That just means that it's time to do some more healing. So you went through this 12-year relationship, you got this divorce, you jumped back in another relationship. Where did this work through Masters of Self University come in, and how has that helped you in moving through everything?
This work really came in my relationship after my divorce, where, it allowed me to witness myself more than I had been. It brings in this level of awareness to the way you show up, the ways that you show up, really. It allowed me to heal some of the guilt that I had in leaving. I ended up, when I went through the settlement, I have my kids 75% of the time. I have full custody, and the majority of the parenting time. I had a lot of guilt in making the choice to leave and uprooting somebody else's life. The biggest thing that this work helped me understand there was that he had his own path to be on, and staying in it to avoid hurting him would be taking his power away. Telling him he's not capable, he's not powerful enough to go through loss as well, or change, or, these big events that hurt, they hurt so badly. That was a massive hit for me with being with MSU, was, oh my goodness, the guilt that I was feeling. Yes, it's there. Feel it, process that, allow that to be there. But also understand that acting on that guilt program would have prevented him from being allowed to having the opportunity to step into his own power. And that of my children as well. Now that I'm saying that, it's, there have been times where I've been like, how does this affect my kids? How has this affected my kids? Well, no, it's part of their path too. It's part of their path too. What kind of mama would they have gotten if I hadn't made this choice? Right. No, I could have stayed. It could have been this, it could have been different, I guess. But what am I taking away from them? I'm taking away from, showing up as the best parent that I could have that I can possibly show up as. They get to witness my growth, and it gives me such a deep understanding of the way that I show up with them as well, so that I am not continuously projecting my discomfort onto them, my unhappiness onto them, looking to them to fill that same, hole that I was expecting him to fill, or the marriage to fill. So it's part of their path at this point too, as difficult as it is.
Yeah. And your dog agrees. He's the whole time he's been like, yes.
I know. Yes, he's in the back. It's like, keep going. Yeah. And then here I have these two beautiful animals that have come into my life that never would have been there if I hadn't, left my marriage. So here they are.
What is so beautiful is, I think that, I'm not a parent, right? But I have family members and things like that. And it's like, we're always trying to make sure that nobody feels pain. We're always trying to make sure that nobody feels anything negative. And on this path, what's so freeing is understanding that every single soul that is here is not yours to save. It's not yours to, quote unquote, protect. Obviously, like as a mother, you protect your kids, but you know what I mean? Like, you're not there to make sure that at every angle they don't get cut or bruised or fall. It's like, when you're doing that, you're literally ripping away their soul's chance to grow, to elevate, to learn. And we disempower people constantly because we're running so much powerlessness and all of these things. And like, there's so much freedom in going, you need to learn and you need to go, and I will support you and I will love you the whole way. And I'll alchemize the guilt or whatever that comes up. But like, man, you're here to learn what you need to learn and go through what you need to go through. And I will be on the sidelines cheering you on and loving you. You got this. And like, oh, the freedom in that, because it's like, now I don't have to do all this suffering and make sure everyone's okay, because that's how I show with my family a lot. It's like, let me save. And it's like, Ellie, let them learn. Let them learn. Yes. Yeah.
And coming from a household where my parents divorced when I was young, it obviously created a lot of emotional pain and trauma, which I've been so diligently healing for the past couple of years. But to keep a family together, as you mentioned earlier, Emily, like eventually when you did hug and the kids are like, oh my God, like we think that the kids don't feel what's going on, and they do. So it's like, whether or not you're in a house together and it's toxic energy, or maybe, okay, it's time to separate, and then the child has to move through that trauma. It's like, it's going to experience pain in one way or the other. And the best thing we can do is, as you mentioned earlier, like empower them. It's like, yes, we of course want to protect our kids, like look after our kid, of course, but you can't shelter them from emotional pain your whole life. They're gonna have to learn. And as uncomfortable as pain is, whether that's physical, mental, or emotional, it is going to come in one way or another. You are going to receive challenges. So may as well embrace it with love instead of running away from it. And that's where in my family, it's been a challenge, because there's been a lot of running away from what happened, not talking about what happened, just wanting things to be good and happy all of the time, which doesn't allow anyone to actually process what's in there. And then what the energy of which you're connecting from is powerlessness, it's guilt, it's avoidance, it's surface level, super surface level. And to actually connect for any depth, you've got to get beyond that. And to get deeper, we have to address, this is what I'm moving through right now, is we have to address the pain that's there if we want to connect in any deep level. And every being is going to have to go through that. And there's no amount of protecting that you can do to your children to not allow them to feel some level of pain or challenge or adversity. So empower them. Like, allow the divorce to be the catalyst that it could be. But instead of, dismissing the kids' feelings, it's like, oh, let's talk. How are you feeling? What's going on? Talk to me. Let's process what's in there. And that way you can grow from it. It can be a gift. And I imagine it was such a blessing for your whole family, that now that you've, found your power throughout all of it. And how has this work translated to having children?
It's, my kids are very triggering. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
So obviously they bring up everything, just like relationships do. You're in that close proximity with somebody else's energy. And it has also brought up a lot of control programs where what I've noticed in myself is I don't like being uncomfortable. Somebody make me comfortable, and your behavior makes me uncomfortable. So I have to control it. So it's brought up all of that, control stuff, and the powerlessness in me that says, I can't sit with discomfort. So please don't make me uncomfortable. So that recognition through MSU has been like gold, right? It's allowed me to sit there and say, oh, come on, girl. Like, you are totally capable of sitting with discomfort. Look at what you have been through. Yes, there have been so many programs that have put Band-Aids and, pathways around all of this shit, but you have been in discomfort. You're in it. No amount of how the kids are acting changes that. So it has really allowed me to connect with my kids versus exist around them, right? So I can have more patience for where they're at. They're just little things. if I can't have patience, if I can't have good behavior, how can I expect these little tinies to have that, right? They're learning from me. And so what it's shown me is like every time I don't like the way they're showing up, I'm like, they've learned that from me. Oh shit. They've learned that from me. And then having the patience for myself, the grace for myself and for them as we both learn together, and being willing to apologize when you mess up. Owning your mistakes with your kids is huge. They get to witness that so that they know how to own theirs. Telling them, I'm constantly telling my kids, I'm learning from you at the same time that you're learning from me. I act like a kid too. This is when I show up acting like I'm your age, and then we're all your age. Wow, isn't that incredible? What can we learn from? How can we pull from here? Another big piece with this work in my kids is just this recognition that I was given these two little souls, right? We all chose each other. And I can look at my kids in the eye and be like, whoa, this is so wild. You're just this little soul that chose to be here with my soul. Like, wow. And it allows for so much presence and so much patience. And I think that is one of the most beautiful things. It's given me that opportunity to teach them, like, hey, does this feel like it's coming from up here? Like, do we feel scared? Do we feel
awesome,
angry? Like, is this coming from up here? Or do you feel like that's coming from love, from your heart? And, you know, especially for my youngest, I feel like the younger that they are exposed to this work, the easier it is for them. My older one struggles a bit more with connecting to her heart. She's 9.5. My little one is 6.5. I can tell my little one, like, can you feel your heart right now? And she's like, yep, my heart says. And it's like the sweetest thing. But being able to work through that with them is incredible. Being able to have them understand, like, you know, hey, when I'm acting like this, I am so sorry. Mama didn't catch herself. This was coming from, you know, when I felt like I was your age, and I'm putting that on you, and that's not fair. So give me a second. Let me step back and feel myself so that I can show up for you with love. They can see, you know, when dad acts this way, because dad doesn't do this work. He doesn't have much understanding of their emotions. So it is like when you're at dad's and that feels icky, that feels uncomfortable. That's not yours, that's dad's. The same way that mama messes up sometimes and shows up this way, like dad's going to do that too. He just doesn't really know how to, you know, say he's sorry or come from a different space, come from his heart instead of up here. So, you know, that's not about you. That's not about you. You don't need to hold on to that. We do a lot of bedtime is usually like the time where it's like, okay, what came up today? And then we sit down and go through, you know, their school day. My little one is going through, she has a lot of control programs, you know, probably thanks mama, thanks divorce. So she has a lot of fear of, again, abandonment doesn't feel right, but it's almost like abandonment. She was very attached to me when we went through the divorce. She was only 1.5 years, right? And so when I walked away from that marriage, all of a sudden the safe person that she knew, because she was always with me. She didn't want to be with anyone else. She was very, very attached to me. And all of a sudden it's like, no, you got to go spend the night on your own without mom at 1.5. Like, you've never known any different than me, but go, see ya. So it shows up as a lot of like grabbing on to people. And in her class right now, they have a lot of like mean girl syndrome going on. Gosh, she's so little. She's in 1st grade, but just the energetics of all the girls in her class, it's all coming up right now instead of like in middle school. And which is when I think it usually, you know, rears up a lot. So we've been doing a lot of, you know, like when you tell another kiddo that you don't want to play with them, or that they can't play with you and the girl you're playing with, like, where's that coming from? Why, you know, I don't want to play with her because, and, you know, it's come forward. Like, there's a lot of fear of letting a third person come into that group. That third person is going to steal away the friend that she's connected with.
Wow.
which is amazing. And now she's able, it's like, okay, so we feel that. Oh my gosh, that's such a big feeling. That's so intense for you to feel that fear of losing the one person that you're connected with. That must feel really, really confusing. She says, yes, you know, we go through it. Says, okay, so can we act from down in your heart rather than up here? So when you're telling that other little girl, like, no, you can't play with us, that's your fear, right? And you're pushing your fear on that other little girl. So can we feel the difference between that fear coming from up here and love coming from your heart, which is, yes, I feel that fear, but I'm okay with that. And yes, you can play because I'm coming from love. So MSU, that is a huge one with my kids, huge with my children.
Amazing. Wow. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. That's a big one. I'm really proud of her. Yeah. And then, you know, also for me, not connecting and identifying with the result of that, right? Like, is she going to get it? Is she not going to get it? That's her path. That's not something I can control. So more, you know, I notice more control programs coming up where it's like, she has to get it. She has to get it. No, she doesn't. But if she does, that's beautiful.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Oh, well, on that note, thank you so much, Em, for bringing this topic and for speaking about this. I feel like we can do a lot of other episodes, like just going along with this. And, you know, I think, and if I had parents who helped me understand what I was feeling, I'd be different. But that it'll be another life for that.
Let that go, Ellie. Let that go.
Yeah, let it go.
Yes.
So attached to that part. Like, you want my parents to be different.
It would have been fire. And you know, the two universal ways of oneness that you really brought up is the way of patience, the way of presence, which is really beautiful, and the way of connection. So to anyone out there who is interested in working with any of us at Master of Self University, set up a free consultation with us at mastersofselfuniversity.com. Check out Rachel's book, The 20 Universal Ways of Oneness, on Amazon. There is also a digital course on that. And find Emily on Instagram and like, share, subscribe, comment. It really helps us do this podcast for free and keep it going. And until next time, we will see you guys then.